Hi everyone, thank you all so much for coming. As you mentioned, I'm Rebecca Cummings. I'm with OC Habitats, and today I'm going to talk about the monarch butterfly and its migration patterns. A little bit about me: I am a Cal State Long Beach student, and I am pursuing environmental science and policy. I am pursuing minors in biology and geology as well, and the reason why I decided to do my presentation on the monarch is because I really like to learn why the world works the way it works, and I think that the fact that the monarch is such a tiny insect and it's able to fly such a great distance is something really cool, and I wanted to do a little bit more research on it. So during my presentation, I'm going to talk about a species overview, the western versus eastern species, their migration patterns, why they migrate, how they're able to migrate, other similar butterflies, both visual and migratory, new research ideas, dangers to the monarchs, conservation efforts, and what you can do to help. So first, I'm going to do a little overview of the species. I'm sure we have all seen a butterfly, but here are some important terms that you can use when you want to describe a butterfly. So the butterfly is going to be broken up into two general wing parts. It's going to have this lower part where it's called its hind wing, and this upper part is called its forewing. Right here we have the abdomen, we have its 6 legs, we have a proboscis, which is kind of like a straw-like structure that helps them reach into the pollen of the flower to get its nectar. We have the head, and we have the compound eye and the antenna, which helps them with sight and vision. So more into the monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly, or Danaus plexippus, is a bright orange butterfly. It has a black border and black veining, and it also has white dots around the border. It is part of class Insecta, so it has 6 legs at adulthood, and its wingspan is 3 to 4 inches, which makes it one of the larger butterflies that you can see here in Orange County and Southern California. So now I'm going to talk about the butterfly life stages. There are 4 main life stages for the butterflies. There have its egg stage, the caterpillar stage, the chrysalis stage, and the butterfly stage. So when the butterfly eggs are laid, they are laid onto the milkweed plant, and this is from day 0 to 4. When the egg hatches, it turns into a caterpillar, and this caterpillar will then consume all of the leaves on the milkweed plant, which helps it grow and get its nutrients for when it's ready to turn into a butterfly. Then it reaches the chrysalis stage from day 18 to 30, and this is when the caterpillar does its transformation into becoming a butterfly. And then after the 30th day, the butterfly emerges out of the chrysalis, and these will live for either 6 weeks or 9 months, depending on which generation the butterfly is in. So what happens in a chrysalis? I'm sure we all know that a caterpillar goes in and then a butterfly comes out, but there's a little bit more to it. Inside of the chrysalis, the caterpillar actually turns into goo. So all of the cells of the caterpillar will dissociate and break down, and then each individual cell of the caterpillar is able to turn into a cell that can have a completely new function. So once the caterpillar is completely dissociated, these cells will reconstruct themselves into a monarch butterfly. So it's more than just the caterpillar going in and sprouting some wings. It's an entire transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly. So now I'm going to talk about the western versus eastern populations. This is because of the habitat location. So we have a western population, which is here over on our coast, and then we have the eastern population. The main division between the two populations is seen right here, and it is the presence of the Rocky Mountains. So on the west of the Rocky Mountains, we have our eastern population, and this goes from the Canada-United States border down to the Mexico-California border. And these are, they're found all along the west of the Rocky Mountains, and they go down for overwintering to the Southern California coast. When we get to the eastern, you'll notice it is a much larger demographic and geographic spread. It's all the way from southern Canada to the Oyama fir forests in central Mexico. These species are genetically identical, so if they were to cross paths, they would be able to reproduce together without any difficulties. So now I'm going to talk about migration patterns. And this map is shown here by the Xerces Society, and it talks a little bit about where the monarch is during the year. So I'll talk about the western monarch butterfly first. This right here is their spring and summer breeding grounds. So in the springtime, the butterflies are doing their reproduction and making new generations to get ready for the fall when they have to go migrate. So the red arrows is going to show where they migrate down to this red patch right along here, which is their overwintering site. These butterflies will fly about 600 miles during their migration, both south and north. The yellow is going to show their migration back up towards their northern habitats. For the eastern side, there is a difference between the spring reproduction grounds and the summer reproduction grounds, just because they have such a large distance that they need to travel that sometimes their generations take place over different seasons. And this goes down to the Oyamel fir forest in central Mexico. And in the spring, when they are ready to go back to their northern habitats, they will fly back up. And these ones, they travel a lot further, and they go about 3,000 miles. And you might be wondering how they're the same exact species, but one travels so much faster and farther. This is because they're kind of built differently. The eastern monarch butterfly is kind of seen as a marathon runner. They fly a little bit slower, but they can fly for a lot longer. And the western monarch butterfly is more of a sprinter. They have like shorter bursts of energy, but they're able to travel faster. So that kind of explains how they balance each other out. Now I'm going to talk about the western habitat. So this is referring to the overwintering habitats, where they go when they travel south. So the western habitats are going to be overwintering in our coastal California tree groves. And these photos down here are showing the butterflies roosting, which is when they cling to the leaves of the trees to rest for the remainder of their journey. And they like our eucalyptus, cypresses, and pines. There is 261 overwintering sites in California, and 9 of which are in Orange County. We have some in San Clemente as well as some in Huntington Beach. If you want to learn more about those or find out where you can see them, you can go to the xerces.org or monarchprogram.org for more information on our Orange County sites. Now I'm going to talk about the eastern habitat. The eastern monarch butterflies will overwinter in the Oyamel fir forests in central Mexico, and they only have about 11 or 12 sites, so they have a lot higher population density in each area. As you can see from these pictures, there are so many butterflies in one spot that you can hardly see the green or the brown in the trees. And this does pose a little bit of a threat, just because if an environmental disaster were to happen in any one of these overwintering sites, a lot larger percentage of the population could be harmed or affected than the more dispersed western overwintering habitats. Now I'm going to talk about why they migrate. So in butterflies, migration is for overwintering. A lot of species either hibernate or migrate south to find cooler, like warmer temperatures, or to avoid the cold. And this is referring to the southern fall migration. So when they come down to their overwintering sites, it is when the butterflies will either go to Southern California or down to the Oyamel fir forest in Mexico. The overwintering sites refer to the physical location that the monarchs will spend their time over winter. They do this to avoid the colds of winter, and they like to find the tall trees that they can stay safe in from the elements and just have a nice rest. Another reason is because monarchs just don't like the cold. Unlike some other butterflies, they cannot withstand the cold temperatures of their northern habitats, and some are even unable to move under 41 degrees Fahrenheit. And at overwintering sites, monarchs should be resting for their spring journey back home, and they should not be expending any energy reproducing. That's another reason why they're able to live so long, because they are using all of their energy for resting and regaining their strength. So for the northern migration back up in the spring, this is largely affected by milkweed. Milkweed, or Asclepias, is the place where monarchs will lay their eggs. This is the food source for their caterpillars, and the presence of milkweed in any area that they are in will initiate their reproductive cues and begin the next monarch generation. So in the spring, the butterflies will know that it's time to go north in search of some milkweed. And if the female butterfly cannot find any milkweed, she will either not lay her eggs, or she will lay so few eggs with low chances of survival. And one thing to note is that the milkweed provides caterpillars with essential nutrition, but in adulthood as butterflies, the butterflies don't generally need to have only milkweed. They're able to get energy and their nutrients from other flowers. And now I'm going to talk about the importance of the types of milkweed that we have in our areas. There are two types of milkweed. There is native and non-native milkweed. The non-native is tropical milkweed. And for the native milkweed, this milkweed will die in the winter while the butterflies are away at their overwintering sites. And so this kind of flows with their generational cycles, because this is also a cue for the butterflies to leave. So when the milkweed dies, they're not here, and when the milkweed regrows itself, that's when the butterflies come back. And the non-native tropical milkweed will stay alive year-round. It is native to the Caribbean, South and Central America, Mexico, and this is something that it's fine over there, but when it's up here, it can accumulate high volumes of the OE parasite. One thing to note is that milkweed should not be planted within 5 miles of the coast, because this might induce reproduction in the butterflies, which would alter their generational life cycle before the butterflies might be ready. So now I'm going to talk about Ophryocistis electroscura. Ophryocistis electroscura is the parasite that I mentioned in the last slide. This parasite is lethal to monarch butterflies, and they will get this parasite from the milkweed plant. When the caterpillars are in their, when the monarchs are in their caterpillar phase, as they're crawling around the milkweed plant, they're accumulating the OE parasite on their bodies. So when they go into their chrysalis phase, the spores of the parasite will release, and it will either engulf the butterfly, killing it, putting serious damage onto its wings, making it unable to fly, or it will produce a butterfly that is completely covered in the spores, which will then transfer it to other milkweed plants or other butterflies. As you can see here in this microscopic picture, these larger objects are actually the scales of the butterfly wings, and the brown dots right here are the OE spores. So this just shows how many can accumulate on one area of a butterfly. And this here is a butterfly that has sadly succumbed to the OE parasite. It really harms their wings and hurts their ability to fly and get more nutrients. Since the parasite will build up on the leaves of the milkweed plant, this is why it's so important to only plant native milkweed. When the native milkweed dies off in the winter, it will also kill the parasite with it. So when you plant a tropical milkweed and have it in your area, this will allow for the parasite to accumulate, and it will be a higher detriment to the butterflies. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to talk about how do they migrate. The butterflies use both generations and genes to help them migrate. There are 4 generations of monarch butterflies, and these are found in both eastern and western populations. The first 3 generations are the non-migratory generations, followed by the 4th migratory generation. The first, second, and third generation of monarchs are born in the spring and the summer. They will fly only short distances throughout their lives, and their main purpose is reproduction. These will only live for 2 to 6 weeks. Then the 4th generation, which is born in the fall, is the migratory generation. These migrate to overwintering sites and then rest to begin their journey back up north in the spring. These butterflies will live for 8 to 9 months, and they're able to do so because in this generation, they don't reproduce until they are ready to fly back up in the spring. And these butterflies also have a special gene called collagen 4 alpha 1 that gives them improved flight metabolism and function. And this gene is only found in the migratory generation, and it's not found in any other butterflies or in any other generations of the monarch. So how do they know when and where to fly? Like many other animals, the monarch will follow environmental cues like shortened days and temperature drops to cue that it's their turn to leave to their migration. Also, the decrease in the quantity and quality of milkweed is another reason why they will start their journey south. The butterflies will use a sun compass and a magnetic compass to help guide them on their journey. And I have a little example of the sun compass right here. The sun compass is the butterfly's use of the sun's position along the horizon, as well as their own circadian rhythm, which is their ability to tell what time of day it is. And the combination of these things will help guide them down. As you can see, they can tell what time it is from what direction they're facing, so they can then, using the light sensors in their antenna, they can tell which way is south, and this is how they will get down. And then when it is a cloudy day and the sun is not out, they will use a magnetic compass. Now this is in response to the Earth's magnetic field that come out of the North and South Pole. Some other insects have this magnetic compass, and scientists can't quite explain how they do, but the animals are able to sense the Earth's magnetic field, and in response to that, it will help guide them south to their overwintering sites. All right, so now I'm going to talk about other similar butterflies. This is both migratory butterflies and other similar looking butterflies. So what other kinds of butterflies migrate? Here I have 3 butterflies, the painted lady, the buckeye, and the red admirals. These butterflies migrate, but they do not make two-way migrations like the monarch butterflies do. Their migrations will take place over multiple generations, so they do not have the same generation flying south and north. It's completely different butterflies each time. So now I'm going to talk about what butterflies might look similar to the monarch. Does anyone have an idea why some butterflies might try to look like the monarch? Protection, yes, that is a good, that is the answer, yes. Mimicry is a good way for the butterflies to try and stay alive. So when the monarch is in its caterpillar phase, the milkweed actually contains a toxin that the caterpillars will keep in their bodies, and they take this toxin into their butterfly form. Now, when a predator like a bird will eat the butterfly, it will get sick and throw that butterfly back up, and since this learned experience teaches the bird not to eat anything that looks like this monarch butterfly, that means these other 3 butterflies are also protected since they look so similar. And their bright color is what helps alert the predator to their toxins. So up here we have our monarch, and down here we have the soldier butterfly, also known as the tropical queen, the queen butterfly, and the viceroy. So about these 2, the queen and the tropical queen, the way you can tell them apart is because the soldier butterfly has slightly darker veining than the queen butterfly. Can anybody tell me what the way to tell apart these bottom left 2 and the monarch butterfly is? Does anyone see the tell? Any ideas?
Is it the color of the body? The tail?
Sort of, yes. Yes, sort of. That is way right there. It's a little different spot that you can see, but the actual way is by telling where the white dots are. In the monarch butterfly, the white dots are only going to be in the outer border and on the veining, but in the queen and the tropical soldier, you can see the white dots on the inside where the orange is. So if you see a butterfly that looks kind of like a monarch, but the white dots are spread inside, then you know it is either a queen or a soldier. Now, moving on to the viceroy, does anybody have an idea how to tell these 2 apart, the monarch and the viceroy? The head? The dots? No, that's not it. This is a really hard one. Any guesses? Yes?
So it looks like there's a heart shape on the viceroy, like with the veining. Is that the veining?
It is the veining, actually. So in the viceroy, it's the veining, but a little different. In the viceroy, they have this slash that separates their hind wing. And that is not seen in the monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly has more of a fan pattern than the viceroy, which has this little slash through it. Now, all of these butterflies on the bottom are going to be a little bit smaller than the monarch butterfly. But when they're placed next to each other like this, or if you just see one on its own, it is going to be a little bit hard to tell apart. But hopefully you learned something, and if you see any of these butterflies in the wild, you can try and identify them.
Rebecca, so some of these answers are probably not completely wrong, it's just that it would be really hard to tell.
No, it definitely
they're
is.
by, they're super tiny. So if you have binoculars with you at all times, she's giving you the most obvious.
No, you're doing great, Mom. All right. Now I'm going to talk about the dangers of losing monarch butterflies. So population decline is the main reason why we are scared that we are going to lose our monarch butterflies. Here we have a Western map by the Xerces Society and an Eastern map by Monarch Joint Venture. And this shows from the 90s that the butterflies are making a decline in their population. And these dots right here are showing the number of sites monitored. So despite more people going out and more sites being monitored, we are still seeing a decrease in the population of butterflies. More notably, in 2018 to 2020, we saw less than 5,000 butterflies at the Western overwintering sites, even though the surrounding years had butterfly numbers of over 200,000. This just shows how fragile the butterfly population is, but this also shows how fast it can bounce back, because we got back to numbers of over 200,000 in the year 2021. So this just shows that, you know, the butterflies, they're a little rocky right now, so we're trying to get the numbers steady on the incline. And not all impacts are environmental impacts, some are human impacts. One being pesticide use. So many gardeners or farmers will use pesticides in their gardens or crops to keep their plants safe from the destructive insects, but this means that they're also killing the insects that we like butterflies, bees, and ladybugs. Another reason is deforestation, because when humans are cutting down trees for our gain, we are stopping species from using those trees as habitats. And this is important for butterflies because when they are here overwintering, they like to roost on our trees. So if we don't give them a place to rest and stay safe from rain and the cold temperatures, we might see an even further decline in their populations. So now I'm going to talk about some conservation efforts. So here are some programs that we have to help monarchs. Here in Southern California, we have the Xerces Society that helps us. It is a program that monitors the overwintering sites for our Western population. This is an organization that is overall dedicated to the protection and research of the monarch species. So if you want to learn some more about the monarch butterfly, they're a great source to go to. Also, milkweed distribution. Organizations like Rogers Gardens, Live Monarch, Tree of Life Nursery, Las Politas, and Thomas Paine all have programs to help educate people on the importance of native milkweed. They have programs that take in tropical milkweed and help us properly dispose of them, and they have distribution systems where they give out native milkweed seeds and plants. And lastly, the endangered species list is a good program that's going to help the monarch. The monarch is actually a candidate on the 2024 endangered species list, and this would be a great help to the monarch because it would give their species, food source, and habitat a lot higher of protection that they would not have had before. So now we're going to talk about some new research ideas, and these are possible conservation solutions. So there is ongoing research on the monarch butterfly just because of how incredible their long journey is. A lot of scientists are trying to figure out how they are able to do this and what we are able to do to stop their population decline. So the first notable thing is that they can switch migration paths. So if a butterfly from the eastern side is traveling down to the Oyama fir forest for their overwintering sites, there is a chance that they could travel back up to the western northern sites. And since they are genetically the same, this means they would be able to reproduce together without any genetic differences or problems. And this is important because if one region were to experience a large population decline, the scientists are hypothesizing that a good solution would be to take a group of the monarchs from one region and move them to the other to try and level out the population. And the other thing is that larger white dots on the monarch's wings will aid in their migration. So we all know on a hot day, if you're wearing a black shirt, it's going to be a little bit warmer than if you were wearing a lighter color. This is because the color black absorbs heat. So the monarchs are always in flight, always in the sun. They have a lot of heat to be absorbed, and the border and veining of them is black. So they have noticed that some more of the monarchs that they are catching and doing tests on have larger white dots on their veins and their border. And they hypothesize that this helps reduce wing heat, and it helps alter the airflow around the wing, which makes it easier for them to migrate. And they're doing this because they want to find out if this is a trait that is only found in the migratory population, or if this trait, having larger white dots on the wings, is better adapted for the monarch population as a whole. So now I'm going to talk about how you can help out the monarch butterflies. The first thing you can do is add native milkweed to your garden. But if you do live within 1 mile of the coast in Southern California, or if you live within 5 miles of the coast north of Santa Barbara, please refrain from planting milkweed because this will start their generational cycle before the butterflies are ready to migrate back up north. So right here I have 4 examples of some California native milkweeds. We have the desert milkweed, the California milkweed, the showy milkweed, and the woolly pod milkweed. These are one of many milkweed species that is suitable for California. And these will all bloom from May to October. And if you like the orange color of the tropical milkweed, but you want to do some helpful things for the monarch butterfly instead of some harmful things, then I recommend planting this butterfly weed right here. Another thing you can do is to add nectaring plants to your garden. These will help sustain the monarch during their overwintering because nectar is their main food source for the adult butterflies when they are down in Southern California or their fir forests. So right here I have the golden brush, the seaside fleabane, the smooth beggar tick, and the western vervain. All of these are native to California, and they will all do wonderfully in your gardens. So thank you so much for joining me and learning a little bit about monarch butterflies. I hope you can take something from this and do your part to help with the monarchs and help. Oh, any questions?
Do you have a picture of the tropical milkweed?
Yes, I do. It's red and yellow. It is gonna be right here. This is what the tropical milkweed looks like. A lot of places are trying to sell it because it is super easy to propagate. And at this point, it's relatively cheap. So a lot of places that are trying to sell you milkweed will try and sell you this tropical milkweed because it also stays around, it stays alive all year round. And people don't know that this is actually a detriment to the butterflies. They think this is more of a helpful thing. But watch out this is the only one that's something that you shouldn't be planting. Any other milkweed is gonna be good. Again, the Xerces Society has a lot of good information on which milkweeds are best to plant.
Are there any other organisms that are supported by the monarch butterfly? In other words, if all the monarch butterflies went away, what else would be affected other than humans not being able to look at them?
The parasite, I want to say. So I don't know if that's too bad.
I think it should be one of the. It's a pollinator, right? So
Yeah,
it's gonna be a pollinator that's no longer with us
Yeah.
anymore, right? Also, I imagine that it will start to change over time. So if they're not here anymore, and there's other species that are, looking like them, that might start to change the
It'll alter
behaviors
it, yeah.
of the animals that eat them, and so it would be a slow change, but I think it would be a change over time.
Yeah, and the milkweed plants do get pollinated by other insects. That's kind of how the OE parasite is able to travel, if not with the butterflies, because the OE parasite will kind of kill the butterfly immediately. So it's actually all the other insects and birds that are around the milkweed that help pollinate the milkweed and move the parasite around.
And she mentioned that some of the nurseries locally have programs where you can take that tropical out of your garden, take it to them, and they will swap you out for a native one for free if you bring in your your tropical. And I will say they are everywhere. You can go to Armstrong. They're just there. They're there, and they propagate like crazy.
Easy to grow.
They have like this fuzzy stuff, and I had bought one a long time ago. It goes everywhere. I am constantly pulling tropical out of my yard now in places that I never planted it. So, any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you.
Hotspots here, butterfly hotspots.
Hotspots.
What?
Hotspots.
Of
Hotspots.
the butterflies? Yeah. With their overwintering, in the eastern habitat, they're down in central Mexico, but in our western habitat in California, we have 261 overwintering sites, and 9 are here in Orange County. So in like Huntington Beach, like their parks, and some San Clemente, like the state beach, there is a lot of monarchs over the winter. So that's a good place to go look. And also the Xerces Society and the Monarch program also have like more specific locations, and they monitor exactly where they are at like all times, so they can tell you exactly where they're gonna be. Once it's time for overwintering, there'll obviously be like more specific locations, but that's just a general area.
You had a question?
I just had a quick question. So I know a few years ago the population dipped drastically, and then I didn't know that it rebounded so much. What was the specific reason for that?
I'm not sure. I was reading, and the scientists like didn't seem completely sure either, and I don't know if it was just because of like the pandemic, because maybe like more people weren't able to get outside and like monitor the butterfly, but I'm not too sure on that.
Yeah, I haven't read it myself.
It was
but I
kind of
would
like an
imagine it could be
anomaly.
Weather, there could have been, we have El Nino and El Nina, and those kinds of things can have affected hurricanes. We've been having a lot of weather situations with hurricanes, and that can blow animals like this off course. Extreme heat and or cold can affect them, and we know that they really don't like cold, so there could have been a variety of factors. There was also, when you, on the one slide where it showed it went really high in the 90s, we were trying to figure that out too, like how come it was so high at that time, what was the explanation for that, and that wasn't clear either. So I think the problem is that they're not being studied very closely yet. That's the thing about science, it's all about money, right? So someone's got to be willing to throw money at it to get the information that we need. But in the 90s, it was super high. You can see right there.
I found it.
Where it's right here.
Yeah, these are both in
numbers,
97.
They're really, really high. So what was going on there? Obviously, was it just a great boom year? And and what happened? What was the giant drop? What was the giant lift? Those are unclear. So definitely would be worthy of more research for sure. Any other questions? We're really thankful for such a nice crowd today.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.